my name is Hannah Eaton, and I am the chair of the Election Commission, and we are the organization that runs the elections and puts on the town hall and the debate and all the events leading up to the election. And this Wednesday and Thursday, you will be getting a link to your IU email to vote for the president and vice president. And also throughout from the night, be sure to check Snapchat because there's a filter so you can send videos to your friends of the candidates as well. And after the debate, there's also some stickers and pens for IUSG that you can feel free to grab from the piano. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight. We are really excited to have Mayor John Hamilton here. He is the 26th mayor of Bloomington, and he is a Bloomington native who graduated from Harvard College and IU Maurer School of Law. And his issues he's passionate about are actually very similar to many of the issues you'll hear candidates talk about today. And that includes transparency, economic justice, social and health services, public, and the environment. So please give it up for Mayor John Hamilton.
Okay, whoa, there we go. Can you hear me all right? Is that too much? Thank you very much, Hannah. It's very nice to be here. I'm going to try to get out of the way so we can have the fun for tonight. I remind you all to use your microphones. I think you want to get right in front of those microphones, and I may step in if you can't hear it. Please raise your hand if you can't hear anything. The format tonight will be 5-minute opening statements. There will then be a period of questions and answers. I will read questions to the panels, and they each will have 2 minutes to respond. These are questions that have been shared with us from the Election Commission. I didn't make these up. And the Election Commission has shared a bunch of questions from them and from students. And then we will finish with closing statements of 3 minutes each. To be fair, we'll start with Vision as the first opening. Bridge will be the final closing, so Vision, you'll lead each of those. That's the best way. And in the question period, I'm going to try to remember that we alternate who starts, okay? And I'm told I'm going to call on the team, and you guys decide who's going to answer each question at 2 minutes, all right? So unless there's any further ado, let's get started. And we have timekeepers who will also let you know, so don't make me jump in and change, step in on the time, watch the time, and I'll let you finish a sentence, but please be respectful of the time limits. And we look forward to an interesting and informative evening as we move into selecting the Indiana University Student Government leadership. So first we will start with a 5-minute opening statement from Vision.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabel Michigan and I'm running for Student Body President with Vision.
Hi, my name is Matt Stein and I'm running for Student Body Vice President with Vision.
Hi, my name is Tegan Myers and I'm running as Treasurer for Vision.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Austin and I'm running as the Congressional Secretary candidate for Vision.
So what is the Vision? It's the very first thing that we talked about as a campaign, and it's what we're here to talk to you all about today. Vision is the intersection between student values and expertise. Now, how we came about that, what that looks like is actually pretty simple. We came together and we said the student government should be representative of students, therefore students should decide what the priorities of the student government are. Our campaign has been reaching out to multiple organizations and individuals and administrators asking, what's your vision? What's a better IU to you? How can student government help that happen? And then the expertise part. That's what you see up here, the people in the Vision t-shirts, those who support us. We are experts across different areas on campus and different organizations, and that's kind of what we're here to do and who we are.
And to discuss a little bit about specifically how many organizations we talked to and who we did. This campaign has reached out and talked to 39 various organizations across the university, and those aren't just conversations that have ended. Those conversations are ongoing, making sure that we are constantly getting students involved no matter what decision or policy we are thinking about. We also have 20 leaders that are passionate and committed. They span communities across the university, and that's why we feel like we are one of the most representative as well as the most inclusive and connected campaigns across the university.
While speaking with those 39 different organizations, we were able to come up with 8 different policy areas that we feel like affected the students the most on this campus. Those include academic affairs, equity and inclusion, government relations, Greek life, health and well-being, student engagement and transparency, student life, and sustainability.
And just a couple of examples that we have of our policies that we've created when talking to these student organizations. One example is our policy regarding amending the Indiana Lifeline Law. We want to extend that, what it would be protecting, the kinds of drugs that students would be able to be on when using the Indiana Lifeline Law. We also want to extend this to be protecting of the individual who is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, so that it is not just the individual who is calling on behalf of a friend that they know needs immediate medical attention. And we also have policy that is as student government oriented as monthly IUSG town halls. And our vision for those monthly IUSG town halls would be a topic every month and a new location every month, so that we can be reaching students regardless of their geographic location, regardless of what it is that they're studying on campus, and regardless of what their interests are. And it's just one way, one vision that we have to get students more involved in their student government should they want to take that opportunity.
So in essence, our campaign, our vision is your vision. Everything that we say up here, everything that's on our social media, everything that's on our website came from students just like you and just like us. They told us what their priorities were. They told us what they thought would make IU better for them, would make IU home for them, and then we translated that into actionable steps that we can take to improve students' experiences here. That's what we're about, that's who we are, and thank you for being here, Mayor Hamilton. Thank you to Election Commission, and thank you to Bridge.
Okay, thank you very much. An opening statement from Bridge IU, please.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie North, and I'm running for Student Body President. I'd first off just like to kind of talk about my background and my experience here at IU. I've been involved in different organizations on campus. My sophomore year, I was involved on Congress, and then that's sort of kind of what gave me the idea to run for Student Body President. Another reason is that my sister's here, she's right there. She's a freshman at IU, and my brother is a senior here. My dad is an IU alum. We just have a big IU family, so I just, when I say go Hoosiers, I truly mean it, and I truly will serve for the students. So now going on to a little bit about our platform and sort of why we created the name Bridge IU, our slogans, together including everyone. We want to, our campaign, we're running a diversity of thought and really trying to hear voices of all students. And with that being said, Bridge IU, we stand for bridging all aspects of campus and different clubs and organizations, and really making the gaps smaller between that. So we want to work closer with the IU administration, get more students to know what student government is, and work with the city of Bloomington as well and really bridge that gap.
Good evening, guys. Prior to going to my introduction, I just want to take the time on behalf of all 8 of us to thank you guys for coming out and helping us in taking those first initial steps needed to bring about that positive change to this campus. That being said, my name is Mihir Barat. I'm the vice presidential candidate through the Bridge IU ticket. One of the introductory pillars that we've used to structure our campaign is Greek life, and some of the policies that we've laid out thus far are ones that we use to make Greek life a progressive, upbeat, and safe part of this campus, and it's something that we're going to delve in throughout the duration of the event that we have. So.
Hey guys, I'm Simon Della, and I'm running for treasurer on behalf of Bridge IU's campaign for student body. And one of my main policies here, being treasurer and being someone from out of state, I want to make sure that our tuition is well worth, whether it be out of state or in state, which is also going up. Making sure that the whole IU student government, IU board of trustees, and at the same time IU is making sure that all these funds are being properly allocated to different clubs and organizations on campus. At the same time, making sure that the issues presented right now we resolve, whether it be funding or allocation of more funding through the government.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan, and I'm the Congressional Secretary candidate for Bridge IU. I'm going to talk a little bit more about our campaign and our platform. So like Mackenzie was saying earlier, we wanted the student voice voice to be integral to our policy and hopefully our future executive team. So going off that, we really see this campaign process as just the beginning of an even bigger process. So we have been reaching out to organizations, reaching out to individuals, hearing what they have to say, what they want to see change. But I don't think only the month of March is enough to hear all student voices that we'd like to hear. So we intend to carry this whole process, hopefully outside the campaign, into the summer, into that first, second semester, and keep this an ongoing process of continuing to hear students' voices and what they'd like to see changed on campus. I'm going to swing it back to Mackenzie to talk a little bit more about our policies.
So a little bit more about one of our policies is we have 3 prongs, and under the student opportunities prong, one of our specific policies we're focusing on is to sort of bridge the gap between different schools on campus. So one way we want to do that is to create like student-led workshops that either SPIA or Kelly students or other individuals who feel like they are informed and knowledgeable of like good career resume skill building techniques, that they can give their advice and kind of student-led run these workshops to teach other students on campus, you know, those aspects and make sure everyone's prepared for the working world, because that is something very important to us. And then another thing is we are going to also work with the City of Bloomington to increase like students' knowledge of off-campus living now, since some of the dorms are under construction right now currently. We know that this is going to be something very important moving forward too, so, yep.
Some of the policies that we've laid out with Greek life that we have detailed information on our website involve establishing a strategic relationship between Greek life and the IU Police Department. The way we plan on going about doing that and facilitating it is having an IU Police Department representative allotted to each fraternity and sorority chapter on this campus, so that in the time of a situation we can use those representatives to inform the fraternity and sorority representatives to kind of go about relaying the warning to other members of the chapters and establishing that mutually beneficial relationship between a university entity and Greek life here at IU.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but we're going to be happy to delve into our policies in this debate, so thank you.
Very good, very good. Thank you both. We are now going to step into the question and answer period. Again, these are questions prepared and assembled by the Election Commission, and I will read them. I'm going to ask, we'll take turns in the first answer. You'll each get 2 minutes as a team. You can allocate that as you wish, and we will start with Bridge IU answering this question first, and then Vision will answer after that. So here's the first question. For the class of 2018, about 69% of college students nationwide took out student loans. Finances are often an issue for college students. Purdue has a tuition freeze, but IU currently does not. How do you plan on addressing, 1, how student funds are being spent, and 2, making college more affordable for students?
That's a great question. So, as I mentioned before in my intro, tuition's very expensive here at IU, especially being out of state. We're paying almost $50,000 this year to go to school. And at the same time, universities across the United States are going up as well in tuition. And one main thing that we realize is that there's a lot of funding at IU that's not being used. For example, last year, there's $55,000 a year that's just given to student government for funds, and only $12,000 that was used. As a result, like, our budget's not being used as efficiently as we need to be. And at the same time with that, with the Board of Trustees working with us, and at the same time the IU's endowment, which is around $2.2 billion, we can make sure that tuition's not only cheaper for students here in the state, at the same time out of state as well, to attract more diversity to IU.
Okay. Division.
So when it comes to funding, the first thing we want to do is talk to our students. We can have as many ideas as we want when it comes to how we're going to spend our money and where we're going to allocate that. But it really, to us, it's about the students' vision and where would they like to see our money allocated towards, and where they want to see us create more events and things for with that money.
And then on the question about how to make college more affordable, and specifically how to make IU more affordable, we would work with different administrators and different student groups to better understand how can we reduce the price of food? How can we think differently about parking? And sort of those basic day-to-day needs of students, because we understand that sometimes tuition is out of our hands. Sometimes tuition is set years in advance, but things like how much RPS charges for different kinds of food is definitely something that's within the scope of student government and something that we would want to start having conversations about. Those day-to-day expenses, how do we make sure that students can save more of their money, more of the time?
Okay, thank you. Vision, this will go to you first, and then to Bridge IU. Second question. Mold in the dorms has created a housing crisis on campus. How do you plan on addressing student housing concerns after being forced to relocate off campus? Also, how do you plan on ensuring these students can still be involved on campus life with more students being further away from campus? That's Division first.
One of the first conversations that we would want to have specifically regarding mold and specifically regarding students being relocated to off-campus housing is we would want to better understand what are the city and what are IU's plans for transportation. We know that most students who live on campus take IU buses, and many students who live off campus take city buses. So now we need to have conversations about where do IU buses go? Are there going to be more city buses? And this kind of gets to both parts of that question. Or how can students stay involved on campus life if they have no place to get here or no way to get here? So that's one of the first conversations that we would want to have concretely is how are we making sure that students can actually get to and from their classes, especially those students who didn't necessarily sign up to live off campus. They wanted a spot on campus but couldn't get it because of the mold issue.
Something we want to make sure that we're addressing as well is that students are involved with the daily community and the daily culture of Indiana University. We're worried that we are potentially going to see freshmen feel like they're not a part of this university and the overarching culture. And that being the case, we want to make sure that we are constantly having conversations with the freshmen that are experiencing this for the first time, considering this is a new and interesting problem that that presents specific challenges. So we want to make sure that we're reaching out to those students and not applying solutions that we thought of previously before addressing the concerns that they are practically dealing with on a day-to-day basis with the experience that they're going through.
Thank you. Bridge IU.
So this question, I mean, like as I said earlier, my sister is a freshman here and she has direct experience with friends, and we've like reached out to them, and they just said having more knowledge of how off-campus living works, the transportation also as well is something that's super important and for them to understand. Like students should definitely, like we would want to like either get lawyers on campus or have student-held workshops similar to the ones that we would do for our career building services, just to create more knowledge and awareness of how like working with off-campus living works, how a leasing process works. I know it's very intimidating, and especially as a freshman, if you're thrown into an apartment so far away from everyone, like how do you create that environment and still like make the freshman students feel that they're there? And like one of the biggest things that we would focus on is making workshops like marketing and just having people like that information and knowledge clear and transparent for all students so they know how things work off campus.
And I say going off that, I think I would love to see something at orientation, because that's the freshman's first time experience at IU getting exposed. And I think it would be great for student government to step in, create a certain segment of that orientation, addressing that issue specifically, addressing the specific needs that Mackenzie was talking about, as well as talking about clubs, organizations they can get involved in so they do feel as if they're a part of campus and they're not totally isolated. I think that would be really important. Directly speaking to them and acknowledging it directly, I think, is what needs to be done.
Thank you. Okay, next question, and this goes to Bridge IU first. Healthcare is a concern for many students, as seen, for example, with recent cases of the mumps on campus. The IU Health Center only takes private insurance, which is not accommodating of many students. Students also only receive 2 free CAPS appointments, the counseling services in the IU Health Center. Some students have reported waiting up to 3 weeks for an appointment time. How do you plan on addressing improving student access to healthcare?
Yeah, that's a great question. Specifically with CAPS, when Mackenzie and I were actually on Congress, we worked with that exact problem, is if you're only getting 2 sessions. And we went and we actually talked to the CAPS people, and they said it's a funding thing. They'd like to make it a more efficient process and have more free sessions for people, but they just don't have the money to do so. And I think that's a matter of working with administration, making those connections, making it a more efficient process, just because that is such a vital importance to our campus and of our students' health and well-being. So yeah, I think working with CAPS, working with the administration on those specific funding needs is necessary.
Going off of that, what Megan said is that is also not a problem that could be fixed immediately, but it is definitely something that, you know, we worked on as Congress members like last year. It's still something that we continue to want to work into and figure out more of the root of the problem of how the funding works and really try to figure ways to fix that in the future.
Okay. Vision.
When we talk to students sitting on the Health Center Student Wellness Alliance about this very issue, a few different things came up. First, students said that yes, it's really frustrating that it can take up to 3 weeks and more commonly a week and a half for you to be seen for CAPS. That's really frustrating, and for some students that's a really big barrier to actually seeking the care that they need. And one thing that the students suggested, and that I think would be a great first starting point, because yes, it would be a very long process to try to increase the number of free CAPS visits specifically, is to better market the other resources that we have on campus specifically for counseling. So those would be programs like Let's Talk, which is a free counseling program located in a few of the cultural centers around campus. And also promoting the Center for Human Growth, which is an alternative counseling source where you can see grad students. Those are just 2 ideas that we had, 2 first starting points in a very long conversation about healthcare affordability on the campus and actual access to services. On the second part of that question about health insurance, we had this conversation with Pete Grog, the executive director of the health center, and I asked Pete straight up. I said, Pete, students really care about this. We just saw a march on our campus about if the health center should take more insurance options, and Pete laid out some really harsh realities to me that kind of knocked me on my butt, and I was like, wow, Pete, how are we gonna deal with this? And he said, one way is to make sure that students are a part of that process. Make sure that students are sitting on the committees that are choosing which insurance company the health center is going to accept next, because they are in the process of deciding if they're going to drop or replace a certain insurance company. So those are a few actionable steps that we would do, is actually get on that committee and then also start having steps about expanding the programs that reach specific groups of students.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question, we'll go to Vision first. Recently, there was a sexual assault outside a dorm on campus. In the past, there's been a shooting in off-campus apartments. IU has also come into the spotlight for Title IX issues in the past. What do you plan on doing to address these concerns of safety and fairness for students?
This is something that has been a particular issue for me this year, and something that I've spent a lot of time working on. I was the chair of the Sexual Misconduct Student Working Group that came together and evaluated how Indiana University really reaches students who have experienced sexual misconduct, and also how that reporting process works and how we're educating students. So one priority that Vision would have if elected is to work off of the 11 recommendations of that student group that brought together different students across campus from over 6 student organizations. Specific to questions more generally about safety and about the shootings that we've seen this year and issues with Title IX, we would want to have more thorough conversations with IU Emergency Management and Continuity, Public Safety and Institutional Assurance, IUPD, and organization or different departments like those to better understand how students can be a part of those processes. How can students be a part of the decision-making process for, are we going to implement a new system? How are we going to do emergency alerts? What are the federal guidelines that dictate what we can and can't do specifically for reporting a shooting, for example, or a sexual assault? And then what are the ways that we can actually send emails that aren't traumatizing, that that we can send emails that no student's going to read and suddenly go into a spiral. So those are all concrete ways that we can make sure we're addressing safety on campus, that we're addressing issues of sexual misconduct, and that we're making sure that we're fostering a safe community from the top down and the bottom up.
So I think sexual assault specifically is something that really needs to be addressed on our campus. And I think because this issue is such of high priority, specifically to our campaign, and I know that every student here feels the same way, I believe that good policy takes time, and I think we need to address all the stakeholders involved, hear from the experts, hear what they have to say, listen to the research, and then formulate policies that are ongoing. And this would be something that I know I would love to dive into this summer and really focus on, really research, and talks to a group like Culture of Care, which is a part of the Sexual Misconduct Student Working Group, which has provided the 11 recommendations that we would still consistently work with and move to push, as well as talking to the Middle Way House, which is a nonprofit in Bloomington that does a lot of great work, a lot of educational opportunities as well, Office of Sexual Violence on campus. I think there's a lot of groups that can be talked to, and going off that, I think it is something that needs to be looked at for a long period of time. Listening to all the stakeholders is extremely important. And I have somewhat of a background with that. I, a couple summers ago, saw this as such a prevalent issue that I actually went back to my old high school, because I think education is at the root of all of this. And I think educating students on what consent is, on talking about bystander intervention is huge and so essential. So I was able to implement 3 policies at my old high school that I would love to carry in and build off of at IU, because I think education, training is everything, and I'd love to see that also integrated into our orientation.
Also, in regards to the safety and well-being of students on campus, if there's going to be a shooting, whether that be on or off campus, we would just like to increase the amount of alerts that get spread to students if the incident happens off campus and it's still like within a relevant, relevance or area on campus.
Thank you. Okay, next question. This goes to Bridge IU first. This is a question I like. I'm not picking these questions. This question is how do you plan on developing your relationship with the City of Bloomington for citywide issues that may also affect students? What are some issues that you plan on addressing that may need involvement from city government?
So one of the ways I feel like we have already kind of touched on 2 of the main things that we would plan to do. Really, it is just focusing on making sure and working with the City of Bloomington and really seeing what they would like to see from the IU administration, and just fostering that relationship and working closely together with that. Another idea that we have created is working closer with the IU Police Department as well as the City of Bloomington to work closer with Greek life and things like that as well.
Okay, vision.
So one of the policies that we've actually made when going out and talking to these student groups, we've actually come up with 2 that are specific to the City of Bloomington and our relationship with the City of Bloomington specifically. The first one is IUSG presence at every city council meeting. If anyone in here is familiar with Councilman Steve Volan, he is someone who has been very willing to discuss student issues and the student perspective, and very willing to listen to individual students and the concerns that they have. And he is a very big advocate for including students from Indiana University Bloomington at city council meetings, so that there's more transparency between Indiana University student government, the Indiana University student body, and the City of Bloomington. We also have a policy that we're currently working on, which has to do with our working relationship between council members, between the mayor, and IUSG associates. We think building a strong relationship, a strong working relationship between these 3 entities would be very beneficial to the student body, to the City of Bloomington, because as I stated previously, it creates greater transparency among the student body and among student issues. And when we can have a relationship with our elected officials, with our members who are government officials in the city, And we have an understanding of how things are done at the city level, while the city also has an understanding of how things are done here at the student government level. To me, I don't see any barrier to the progress that can be created and the work that can be done, not only for students, but for residents of Bloomington.
And we would work off of an already existing IUSG program that's new this year called the City Liaison Program. One of our leaders in Vision is the current city liaison between the administration and the city of Bloomington, and that's a program that we would want to bolster and make sure that we're truly taking advantage of.
Thank you. Okay, next question. We'll go to Vision first. IU must balance maintaining a safe and respectful campus while also not restricting free speech on campus. One concern, for example, from a student group has been the small size of the prayer room in the Indiana Memorial Union for the Muslim student population and lack of support from the university for this group of students. More generally, too, how can IU be more inclusive of diverse groups?
So this is something that's actually been at the forefront of our campaign's mind. We've actually had meetings with multiple members of the Muslim Student Association, the Middle Eastern Student Association, Arabic Flagship Program, and the Center for the Study of the Middle East. And we've heard very similar sentiments that you've expressed in the question. And something that we want to work on is creating a Middle and Near Eastern Cultural Center. So something that's vital for freedom of speech and making sure that people are being heard is that the same resources as well as the same access to opportunity is available to every single person, no matter what community and no matter what ideology you're expressing. We are also working to connect diversity offices within the various colleges to make sure that constant and clear communication is going on when issues are being presented and happening within various communities around the university.
And another policy actually to address that first point of the question that we're currently researching and exploring is creating a prayer center, an open prayer center for students in Wells Library. This was an idea that was brought to us particularly by the Muslim Student Association because they currently don't have an adequate space to prayer for their 5 daily prayers. And it's something that we're researching, that we're going to be opening conversations up with administration regarding, because all students on this campus, regardless of their faith, of their ethnicity, of their race, what have you, deserve equal treatment and deserve to feel like Indiana University truly is home to those students and students who fall within those groups. And our idea here, our vision, is to be the outlet for those concerns and to be able to work on behalf of those students.
Bridge IU?
So one way that we have talked about trying to include and really outreach and branch out to other students and really create that diversity on campus is to focus on the international students. When they come in freshman year, they have orientation a full week before all other students on campus, and that is the first thing that they know and that they see. And for them, like I've had personal experiences with some of my friends who are international students, and they've told me, the campus feels dead, like that is their first impression. So sort of maybe creating like a way to get like a mentorship program where other students that are from the United States that would come early, a week early with them and work with them and kind of like be there, be a guide, make it feel more at home so they're not alone that whole first week that they're here. That's one thing that we would talked about to create more of a diversity on campus so they feel more included as well.
To add to what was said earlier this week when the MSA hosted a vigil, when we attended the vigil, we realized that one of the main concerns that was brought up was the prayer room size. It's actually the size of the closet as described by a member of the MSA. And one thing we want to change, as said, is that to have a prayer room at the Wells Library itself, which is one of the buildings that's open the longest here on campus, at the same time it has security in the front. Having this is not only important because it makes everyone feel comfortable that IU is accepting and that diversity is very important here at the campus. Again, this doesn't stop at MSA, it goes on to ISA and all organizations that promote diversity on campus, making sure that everyone feels comfortable to be here at school.
Thank you. This next question, first to Bridge IU. In recent years, some students have expressed distrust and hesitancy to believe in student government. How do you plan to address these concerns?
I would just say one of the first things is to sort of create more transparency of what student government does and really just like outreach to all students. One of the things that our ticket is focused on is trying to get more students to know what student government is, and I think creating more transparency leads to more trust in the system and in student government.
Yeah, more specifically with that, we would like to hold monthly town halls or open forums, and I think social media is also so huge. I think if that could become more of an interactive tool, such as using Instagram Live to answer questions that can be submitted, a question and answer, making that more interactive. And I also think that targeted student outreach is really big too, and that would mean going to different student organizations across campus, talking to them, hearing what they want to see changed, and also with that, letting them know who we are, and just kind of making that bond that we're here, we're standing with you. And yeah, I think even holding more of a presence across schools as well. I know that student government is majority SPIA and Cali students, and sometimes the rest of the schools or the College of Arts and Sciences can kind of feel like they're not as involved, so I think specific outreach to those schools as well, making a presence in those schools, whether it be their buildings or any organizations that root from those schools, could be really beneficial as well and make IUSG more known on campus.
One thing that we really want to do to increase student engagement and the transparency with IU student government is having the monthly IUSG town halls. We will feature those town halls at different schools around campuses each month. So one month it might be in Kelly, but the next month it might be at Jacobs. And we would do that so that we would get different ranges of students from each group, as well as hosting them at different times, because maybe a 7 p.m. Meeting will work for some students, whereas 5 p.m. will work for other ones. That way we can meet more students on campus and hear what they have to say about student government and what they would like to see change, and then hopefully we can go out and make those changes for them.
Another thing that students have expressed is that people have been losing faith in student government because it's not doing things, it's talking about things. And that's something that we absolutely want to change. We want to make sure that we are not just advocating, but acting on behalf of the concerns that students bring to student government. We want to make sure that student government is working and doing the things that you see student government doing, so that this campus and the communities that you are a part of more align with the vision that you have for those communities and for the campus generally.
Okay. Got it. Next, so this will go to Vision first. What is your position on scooters on and off campus? What rules, if any, should apply to them? And if you care to speak more generally about mobility options for students and what you think should be done, you're welcome to do that too.
So I think 2 questions come to mind personally when I think about the scooters. One is climate change. It is absolutely a better alternative than driving to class or even taking the bus. It has a much lower CO2 emission and has a much less, has a smaller carbon footprint. So positive in my eyes, at least. The second question that comes to my mind is safety. We need to make sure that the roads and the walkways are accounting for this massive influx of scooters so that students are being safe and there aren't any accidents that could end up resulting in a catastrophe. And along those lines, we want to make sure that students are driving these things safely, meaning they have helmets on, that they are not riding them on the sidewalk. And Vision would absolutely be advocating for further safety precautions across campus on the administrative level when we're talking about roads and walkways, and on the student level when we're talking about helmets.
And to really build off of that last point there, actually this week is IU's inaugural Scooter Safety Week, sponsored by IU Student Government and the Health Center. Today, IU Student Government gave away free helmets donated by Bird with some really cool stickers, and there were 2 hours blocked out for this event, and all of the helmets were gone in 30 minutes. So I consider that a win for the student body. This is something that Vision would love to continue to do, to bring in other companies like Pace and Lime, and if we see any other scooter and bike companies And going off of the bike question really quickly, I think that it's really important that we don't forget that biking is an option and that we have some really fantastic trails and we have some really great exercise options available to students, and that the PACE bikes are here for a reason. So we would want to partner with PACE to make sure that students know that biking is an option for them as well.
Bridge IU.
Serious as this issue is, I actually personally could relate to this. I fell off one of these scooters a couple of weeks ago, and the main reason that I noticed is that a lot of the sidewalks here at IU, a lot of them they're not clear. Again, we got to make sure these roads, sidewalks are accessible to students and safe. The most important thing I would say is like the scooters, like a lot of them have trouble in the past shutting off randomly, students falling off them, or students tripping over scooters that are already on the ground. And we have to make sure that IU student government not only works with IU itself, but at the same time with these different scooter companies to make sure that the rules that they enforce on their websites are also actually enforced on campus itself. And to add to this, yes, biking is a great option here on campus, but in terms of convenience, many of these options are used to get to class, but not on trails. And to make sure that these bikes, scooters, if they're going to be used on campus, we have to make sure it's done in a safe way, convenient way for the students to get from point A to point B.
I was just going to say, going off of that, we would be advocating just for more increased knowledge of the safety regulations and things when students are going to get on one of these scooters, just kind of making sure that there are clear policies that the university has set out, puts around campus, markets it better so all students know before they were to do those things.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a little different. This is a lightning round. Hannah, pay attention. We're timing this now differently. In 30 seconds or less, and this goes first to Bridge IU, in 30 seconds or less, why do you want to be president and vice president of IUSG?
So as I said before, I would like to be president just because to make things better, have better communication for the university, for current students, incoming students, and just like relations with the alum. I have so much family background at IU. I'm very passionate about it, and I want to do anything to give back and better the IU community.
Yeah, and for me, being a junior now, the amount of professional and personal development that I've gotten from the university itself, the people that make it up, and the different resources that are present here has allowed me to realize more and more every single day how much of an innate desire I have to give back to the university, help it grow on the foundation that's present here already, and then continue to present it with new ideas to better enhance the experience for students.
Okay, 30 seconds. Thank you, Vision.
I want to be student body president because I have a history of serving this student body. I have focus, I have energy, I'm tenacious, and all I want to do is give back to the university that has given me so much and the organization that has built me into the woman that I am today.
I want to run for student body vice president because I truly enjoy engaging with students on a day-to-day basis, knowing what students are struggling with, making sure that student government as well as the administration is working on behalf of those students is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that's why I'm doing this.
Okay, very good, thank you. Back to the 2-minute questions now. This goes first to Vision. Students have noticed that in the dining halls, even though there are recycling options, students don't know how to separate out waste into the proper containers. That's one example. With that, and more generally, what can be done to reduce waste and improve sustainability on campus?
So these actually hit with the 3 of our sustainability policies that currently exist. The first one is encouraging composting education, because it is an absolutely valid concern to not understand how to properly compost and how to properly dispose of your waste. The pictures that are displayed upon our waste baskets aren't entirely clear, and especially for our freshmen and first-year students, they're not really sure how to use them properly. And in fact, a lot of those, despite the fact that they're separated out, the waste generally goes to the same place. So it's an issue of working with the appropriate vendors on campus to make sure that the waste actually is being disposed of properly, and to make sure that they are fulfilling the promises that they give not only to Indiana University, but to the students when encouraging appropriate recycling and composting. One of the ideas we have is to increase education on that. That could be something that is done in a multitude of different ways, whether it be at freshman orientation, at new student orientation, It could be pamphlets on the doors. In most of the RPS rooms, there are little posters on the doors explaining, how to leave in case of a fire emergency or in case of a tornado emergency. This could be something that is posted in the bathrooms. This could be something that is posted in learning buildings, in our academic buildings. There's a plethora of ways that we could go about this. But what's really important is that we ask the students where they want to see this, and that we act on behalf of where the students would like to see this project going, multiple of these projects going. Rather than us doing what we feel is in the best interest. The best way to go about this is absolutely to ask the students what is going to be most beneficial to them, and then acting on behalf of what the students are telling us to do.
Sustainability is a very important of the Bridge IU's campaign. And with that being said, a great idea that I want to push forward is making sure that we have reusable cups at all dining halls or across campus. So that with this being said, for example, if you come to one of, let's say, Wright Food Court, and you have a reusable cup, you'll be eligible for a discount on whatever food you're being purchased or drinks being purchased at that time. And this is an incentive to make sure that everyone moves towards more reusable cups and not the plastic ones that are provided at many of these facilities. And at the same time, the budget for IUSTV government sustainability was $500 for 2018-2019. Out of that 500, zero was used towards pushing the sustainability. So if I was treasurer, I would make sure that the funding towards sustainability, as my Bridge IU agrees, is pushed and implemented across campus and at all dining halls.
Okay. Let me ask you, I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions. Alcohol education and awareness is an often talked about issue on campus. This is going to go to Bridge IU first. Students who get caught with alcohol in the dorms may go to Oasis. They can get a $200 Oasis fine, which can be quite costly for some students. Also, students have reported concerns with the quality of the programming at Oasis. Appeal process when receiving a ticket may be unknown or confusing for students who can end up paying the fine, even if it was not their alcohol or they were not drinking. So one specific question, should the $200 Oasis fine remain or be changed? And more generally, what can be done to improve alcohol education in the Oasis program? That's to Bridge IU.
So the entire Oasis process isn't something that we've put a lot of attention into, but from the way you structured your question, I think it's important to take into account a lot of the logistical and resources that go into making that Oasis an effective part of alcohol training and alcohol education. So assessing that fine and making sure that it's covering all costs to once again make it an impactful and just efficient part of the student experience with alcohol education is something that we plan to do with utmost priority.
To add to that, fines are important to de-incentivize students from doing that, but what's most important is the education behind alcohol and the alcohol usage. And to make sure that this education starts, especially from the day you step into orientation to your freshman year all the way up to your senior year. It's very important to make sure that every student at IU knows what it means to consume alcohol safely and at the same time at the right age.
Okay. Vision?
We would want to speak with Oasis, we would want to speak with the health center to understand what exactly does that fine support. Does that fine, in fact, support educational programmings, or does it go towards administrative costs? So we would want to start with those conversations. I've been fortunate enough to sit on the committee that's actually overseeing the rebranding of Oasis as they change their name, change some of their programs, and also move locations. And that would be a committee that I continue to sit on if elected, and continue to offer student insight, and continue to ask questions, and continue to push boundaries. When it comes to improving alcohol education, something that Vision understands is it's not just Oasis. It's culture of care. It's Students in Recovery Bloomington. It's the Health and Wellbeing Committee of IUSG on the executive side and on the congressional side. And it's making sure that all of those players are working together, and all of those players know this is what this group is doing and this is what this group is doing, so that we make sure that we're coordinating efforts and that we aren't doing the exact same message to the exact same groups of students. We want to make sure that different groups of students who might have different needs are actually getting the appropriate messaging about alcohol. For example, messaging to minors might be very different than messaging to graduate students who are 22, 23, 24 and up. So first, we would want to make sure that we continue to have student voice on the committees that are overseeing what OASIS looks like a few months from now. And we would also want to make sure that we're collaborating with other organizations, and specifically student organizations that have these same goals and that want to see students actually have appropriate alcohol education.
Okay. Last question before we do the closing statements, so be ready for that. And this last question will go to Vision First. It's got two parts. What are your goals for your first 30 days in office? And second, for the first month of the next school year?
So our first step is going to be establishing exactly what we've been talking about, the system where we're going to hear students and get their vision for this university heard. We're going to be setting up these monthly IUSG town halls so that we're taking the conversations we've already had and making sure to include as many students as we can.
The first month of the next academic year is critical for IU student government specifically because it's when we start recruiting freshmen for our freshman internship program. It's when we meet students for the first time at events like Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll and the Student Involvement Fair. So we would want to come in swinging. We would want to make sure that we have adequate funding from the Congress. We would want to make sure that we have the materials needed to entice students to come to your table, that inform students on what student government does, and how they can be a part of that change. And a lot of this just sounds very much like, oh, you want to reach students, you want to talk to students. Yes, that's exactly what we want to do in our first 30 days. That's exactly what we want to be doing in our first month. Because yes, we have met with over 39 organizations, and we have 37 first steps to when we're in office. We have 37 first steps for our committees, and those are listed on our website under our platform. But that's not every student voice. That's not all the student values, and we want to make sure that we adequately reach more students and make sure that more students are a part of these conversations. More students are a part of the decision-making process, and of course that students actually get involved with IU student government, because the executive ticket that's elected, no matter who they are, they're only as powerful as their other counterparts. They're only as powerful as our student body Congress. They're only as powerful as a fair election commission, only as impactful as our Supreme Court, and I could go on. So we would want to make sure that we have a solid foundation for the student government so that we, as a collective whole, 3 branches and 2 departments, can do what we're here to do, and that's serve students.
Thank you. Bridge, IU.
I would say our goals are to really first off see what students want and advocate for the students and be a voice of the students. We would definitely continue to create surveys, go around to different organizations. That would be a continuous process, everything we've done throughout campaigning, and just continue to keep doing that and really hear the voices of what the students want. That was something that's very important to us. We also recognize that policy takes time, and so with this time, like in the beginning, one of the first things is really just collecting this information. We could have all like the policies lined up, but if it's not what the students want, then we just want to hear what the students want and really just focus on that.
Yes, so something that we plan on doing very immediately right off the bat is maximizing the number of and the amount of student insight that we get. A lot of the policies that we've laid out so far are very fundamental, are ones that are going to be perfected based on how much insight we get, how many student networks we reach out to, how many different types of schools that are present at Indiana University reach out to us, so that prior to presenting it to policymakers and decision makers, we're making sure that our policies are affecting as much of the student body as possible.
Okay. Very good. So that's the end of the questioning period, and we're going to now have closing statements with Vision First and followed by Bridge IU with a maximum of 3 minutes each for your closing statements.
Vision is the intersection between student values and expertise. Meaning, we went to students first and we asked, what do you want to see from your student government? And we took those needs and those wishes and we put them into a platform. And we made sure that we were advocating for a platform that started at the roots of students. And that's exactly how we'll run our administration if we win. Students' vision will always come first, and we will always be making sure to stress and prioritize the systems in place to making sure that those visions are being heard.
We've spent 3 months going to students, talking with individuals, talking with members of organizations, talking with administrators even, and students who hadn't even taken their first step at IU yet. And what we have is a robust policy platform that in some ways is really broad, but in other ways is really specific, because those are the visions of students. Not every single student wants to see some major sweeping change. Some students just want cleaner restrooms in the residence halls, and that's their #1 priority. And hey, if that's your priority, then we'll talk to RHA, we'll talk to RPS. That's our priority too. A reminder that you're going to be getting an email from Student Affairs in the morning on Wednesday, March 27th. That email will contain some information about the 2 tickets and also a link to vote. To vote, you click on that link. You have to log into your Be Involved with the duo, everyone's favorite, and there are going to be bios for each of the candidates, and you'll be able to cast your vote there. Lastly, we want to thank Mayor Hamilton so much for being here with us and for really helping to connect the students with the city. Thank you so much to Election Commission for being right there with us in all of these late nights. And thank you so much for Bridge, for you all being here and participating in this process.
Bridge IU, we'll get that in a second. Bridge IU.
First off, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight and being here. As I said, Bridge IU, we're running with one goal in mind, to bridge the campus and work closer with the administration and really just make the gaps smaller and work together to create unity and oneness within IU and the greater Bloomington area. So with that being said, yes, this Wednesday is elections. You'll be getting the email, just reiterating that. And yeah, just together, including everyone, Bridge IU, we are really trying to make the community smaller.
Something that I want to reiterate that I've communicated to you guys in the past events is the literal as well as figurative message that we want to convey to you guys through our campaigning. Bridge IU, we want to be able to bring about that oneness, cohesion, and transparency between the 2 entities that make up this university. In terms of our approach to student government and the diverse skill sets, diverse backgrounds that we've made sure to include when structuring our campaign team is to add a new light, bring a new perspective to student government. A lot of the issues that we've been talking through the debates and town halls are ones that were talked about last year. We want to maximize the amount of change, maximize the amount of impact that we bring to the student body and to the university, so that come next year when there's a new campaign running, there's a completely different new kind of wave, completely different new perspective that's being brought to this university. It's going to continuously better it. So thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you. Will you now join me in thanking both Bridge IU. Very well done. I will make very brief reminders. It is not easy to run for office, I know. And these 8 exceptional individuals, I want you to just think about them as 8 individuals now too, and thank each of them for stepping into the arena and putting forth yourselves for election. That's great, each of you. Thank you. And again, reminding you, this is your government as students. This represents you. Get engaged. Ask them to do things. If you do not vote for them, then it's hard to go and ask them to work for you. So please get engaged. Please, everybody, vote using that email link. You can check out on IUSTV. Apparently, also, you can see this and check back and look at what people said. But thank you all for your very excellent job tonight, and good luck to you all. And please get out there and vote, everybody. Check your email links. Good night.